Hey, man.
What's going on? I don't know. I don't know what happened. I was trying to say what's going on, and there was a B that got thrown in there somehow. It came out very Louisiana. What's going on? I think I swallowed at the same time. I don't know what happened, guys.
The immediate what from both of us.
We can cut
both couldn't even.
Sorry, Connor. If you could just put subtitles over me like they do in the swamp shows, that would really be helpful. I have no idea what I said. What going on?
Put a name and give Jared like a weird swamp name.
We don't got to do this.
Jared Myers Swamp Boy.
Swamp Boy, that's what they're called, you know? Golly, dude.
Anyways, have you ever heard of
Okay. Have you ever gone on one of those gator tours in like Louisiana?
Yeah. Not in Louisiana. I went in Florida.
Yeah. I went once.
We went. Have you been in Pensacola Bay?
Yeah.
That whole bay is only an average of like 4 feet deep, which is crazy. And so like he took us out into the middle of the bay on our little fan floater thing.
Pensacola, dude.
Well, we were at
this is your honeymoon.
We were at Alice Beach, and then we drove up to Pensacola for this tour. But
Pensacola Bay
for the Pensacola Bay Gator tour. But they got a swamp on the backside.
I got you.
And so we're in the little fan boat, and he takes us out to the center of the bay, leaves the swamp, takes us out to the center of the bay. And he didn't tell us that it's only 4 feet deep. What he did tell us, he said this bay is swimming with bull sharks. And then he jumped out of the boat in the middle of the bay.
You know, one of my favorite videos on the internet is, do you know the one I'm talking about, where there's just on that swamp boat, pitch black, middle of the night, going through the swamp, and they see someone in the swamp, and they roll up. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And he's got a Walmart cheesecake in his hands, and the guy on the boat, in the most Louisiana way, just goes, "Bro, are you eating cheesecake in the swamp?" And that's where the video ends. You don't get any context.
No idea why
this guy's there. And he just goes, "Yeah." And he's just barefoot,
waded through the swamp
in the dark.
It is gator territory.
Swamping around, dude. Do you think down there they call garage sales swamp meets? Or do you think that's what they call their meat shops when they sell alligator?
Swamp
meat.
Swamp meat. Oh gosh, I hate that.
Anyway,
incredible story. But yeah, the guy just jumped out, and it was like knee deep water, and so all of us were like, he just jumps out and lands, and we're like, what the. Like it messes.
He landed on a shark.
He's like this whole bay, and he explains it's like 4 feet deep. He's in there for 30 seconds, and he's like, oh yeah, there's a bull shark now, and like jumps back in, and the bull shark literally like swims right up next to our boat. It was a crazy experience.
Yeah,
we didn't even see any gators on the gator tour though. Anyways,
you didn't see any ghosts on the ghost tour either, you know.
But we did see ghosts on the gator tour. We saw gators on the ghost tour. Dude.
That was weird. In those night vision goggles, bro.
Is that a ghost? And then we're in this house and we saw a gator in the basement.
Eating cheesecake right now?
The guy was like, yeah, the alligator's not a part of the ghost tour. We should get out of this basement.
Whatever gators do, dude. There's little swamp cats, bro. They're just. You're like, okay.
Swamp cat.
Okay. Swamp cat was what my name should be on the
Discord. Yeah, change that. Change that right now.
In the beginning, where I'm like, Swamp cat is my name. Wow,
no, I think
dude.
you should change your name in the Discord right now. No one will understand.
All right.
I think this whole part should be the intro to the episode.
If you're not a Patreon supporter, sorry. If you are, you get access to our Discord channel.
Jaren's name right now is Paul Rudd the actor.
It is Paul Rudd the actor, which I also changed with no context.
Yeah, I think mine is Lord of the Rabbits still.
It is right now. I forget how to change your name on here.
You have to like click on your profile and then go to like change name.
Edit user profile. Here we go. I'm going. What am I going? Swamp cat.
Swamp cat. Like we don't know what's out there, but
we don't know where you're at, but you know where we are, and that's scary. She says, if a guy has time in his 20s to take me out on dates, he's a loser. A guy tried to pass me on a single lane road today. He was real mad. I was like, where you gotta go in your Chevy? I needed some me time. Things I learned last night.
leave that whole part in.
Great.
Except for this part that we cut out.
You ready?
Executed flawlessly.
Perfect cut. We're so good at editing this, dude. All right, anyway.
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Have you ever heard of the Strauss-Howe generational theory?
The what?
You might have heard of it under its more popular name, the fourth turning.
The fourth turning? This is an alien thing.
No. No, actually, I don't.
The
I guess
turning?
maybe there's a way. No, yeah, the fourth turning. That's this more popular name.
No.
So this is an interesting thing.
Is this like the Enneagram?
In a way, sort of similar.
Okay.
There's no test that you can take.
Okay. You're just proclaimed?
Yeah, you get to just pick. You get to just choose.
Sure.
No, but in a way, it's kind of similar. The fourth turning comes from the Strauss-Howe generational theory.
Okay.
And this is a book.
What are you saying? The Strauss-Howe
generational theory.
Great.
And it's found in a book from a guy named Neil Howe and William Strauss. It's these two academics. One of them's an economist and one of them's a historian.
Okay.
And they wrote this book that released in 1997 called The Fourth Turning, an American Prophecy. And the concept of...
Great.
This was their second book together. In 1991, they released a book called Generations. So these guys are really interested in generations.
Have we talked about this weird book before?
I don't think we have.
Okay. Not on the podcast, but just like you and I?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think we have.
Sure.
And it's interesting because I've been hearing a lot about this concept of the fourth turning lately, especially on like TikTok.
Okay.
It's gotten very conspiracy-y.
Yeah,
conspiracy-ish.
I want to say there's like some kind of book from the 90s that like prophesied a lot of the stuff. That
it's this one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And there's like a lot of conspiracy theorists and it's like pretty vague.
Yeah.
Prophecies.
Yeah.
That then you can be like, well, technically this does match that description.
Yeah. And so I'm glad you have a concept of this, because what I want to do is I want to outline the conspiracy theory view. And then I want to take
that's what I was worried about. I was worried about the people who are going to search this topic having to listen to us talk swamps. It's
always one of these episodes where we open like that. It just happens. There'll be episodes about stuff that doesn't matter at all, and we'll dive right into the content. We just get
super into the topic. Yeah. And on these ones, we just go, dang, swamps.
But then on conspiracy episodes, I wear a hazmat suit.
Angriest people. Oh, bro, the Tatarian episode was rough. Yeah.
Yeah, that always happens.
I'm shocked about the lack of comments we have on the Orgone episode.
That is true. That one just hasn't picked up. I don't know why.
Yet.
Yeah. We'll have to make some clips about it. The fourth turning. I want to look at the conspiracy view of it and kind of outline that. And then I want to take it back to the book.
But these dudes aren't dead, are they? Like, they're around.
One of them's dead. The other one's still around. And so he's still doing interviews. And it's actually really interesting watching him.
Is he feeding into the conspiracy stuff?
No. That's the best part of it.
No.
And what's interesting.
But his partner's dead.
If you watch.
You know what I'm saying?
His partner was feeding into the conspiracies, and the FBI killed him for it.
The FBI doesn't do that. It'd be the CIA.
Oh, sorry, you're right. But yeah, so I wanted to do an episode about this conspiracy theory. And so because I wanted to do that episode, like I did my research, and then I realized this book was on
Amazon.
Yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Not Kindle.
BarnesandNoble.com.
Not Kindle. We use it all the time to listen to books.
Audible.
Thank you. I was drawing a blank. TILLN.com/audible.
Hashtag ad.
No, and so I was like, well, I'll just listen to it.
We should make an ad service for podcasting called Adable. No, Adable is definitely a term from Algebra Victory. Stupid.
What?
Algebra Victory.
What's Algebra Victory?
Algebra for Patriots.
Except for, what was it, Kentucky?
Except for Kentucky. That's a joke for our Patreon supporters.
I forgot about Algebra Victory. Have we posted that yet?
I don't know. Google Algebra Victory. By the time this comes out, we will have.
So the I wanted to do the episode about the conspiracy theory because I thought it was an interesting theory. More just because I thought you were going to hate it.
Yeah.
But
I do.
then I listened to the book and I realized, like most conspiracy theories, how far off they are. And so now I want to do both.
The conspiracy theorists are far off?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
okay. I thought you were going to say, I realized, like most conspiracy theorists, the truth. And you're like, okay.
Well, no, I think the conspiracy theorists, like they took the ideas and they freaking ran with them.
Yeah, and they didn't read the book.
Yeah, they watched a YouTube video that a guy who read the book wrote. Yeah. And then they made some assumptions. And then a bunch of people watched those guys' assumptions and it just
right.
Yeah.
And now it's like the church.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't read it.
But my pastor said.
But I watched the video. Yeah,
but I watched this.
You get it. That was a good joke.
Yeah. That's really funny. So here's the way it goes, right? The concept is that every 80 years or so, we enter a fourth turning period.
Okay.
And in the fourth turning period, everything blows up. The political stability of the world starts to collapse.
The polar shift.
The poles shift.
Sure.
And there's usually wars and economic issues and things like that.
Okay.
And it's interesting, if you go back 80 years from now, World War II, go back about 80 years from then, it's the
Civil War.
The Civil War. About 80 years from then, it's the Revolutionary War. About 80 years from then is like the beginning of the colonial
who had
period.
like a similar theory is this? This is totally not off topic. My ex-girlfriend's dad. I remember one time very specifically.
Carefully listens.
I'm so serious is that we were in his kitchen, and we're sitting there talking about whatever. It was 2015.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he goes, every 7 years the economy resets. I was like, what? He goes, it's biblical. And he was telling me how every 7 years he was saying that it's biblical to forgive debts of
Yeah. What does he think that our country?
He thinks that because they're not, it leads to financial collapse. And honestly, bro, 2008, 2015, things were rocky.
Yeah.
2022.
It does kind of track.
It's like a little, I was like, okay, hey.
It's a little hoo-ha, but you might be hoo-ha right.
You might. Well, if you're saying 2008, 2009, right? 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
2022, banks just closed this year, 23.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
It could be a thing.
Yeah.
You could be right. Or you could be totally wrong.
Me and him flying in my Pepsi jet.
Hey, thanks for buying me this Pepsi jet. Hopefully everyone repays their debts next year and I don't have to get this repossessed.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so here's the flight. Here's the rules for the flight. Okay, got to stay seated when the seatbelt signs on. Exits are to the back and the front here. If there's an emergency landing, we're going to take it out of the field. And also, we just don't talk about her here. That's like the only rules.
Like we're just not going to.
Just rules. Don't bring the vibes.
That didn't work out. And it's okay. And it's okay. We're just moving. We're moving forward and it's all right.
Do you pray? Lots of inside jokes for our listeners there. Anyway, since you're not a listener, conspiracy theorists who stumbled across this, let's talk about the fourth turning then.
Yeah, let's get back to it.
But I'm serious. He really did feel like he was like, it's biblical.
It's biblical.
He was so serious in that conversation.
Yeah, and
I do remember that.
These people are serious about it.
I know. So I'm saying there's like a similar like vibe,
and so
which would still track because 7, 8.
It's 8. 8's the number
would
of
become
completion.
80. Well, I'm saying like if his theory is correct, then every 10 of those is
a bigger one.
The window for the fourth turning or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So it's not like a strict like 80.
Yeah, it's a 80-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So the conspiracy theorists say we've seen war after war every 80-year cycle. We're due. We're due for another one.
Due for some war.
We're due for a big one. And so they look at the COVID-19 pandemic and the financial issues that we've had and all this stuff that's as like the beginning of the turning, but it's going to bubble over into this big war.
Sure.
Coincidentally,
does it have to be war? Is that what they've chosen onto? Like it has to be like a world war?
Well, it depends who you look at.
Sure.
There are some who say it's going to be like a world war. There's some who think that the aliens are going to invade and we're going to have a war with the aliens. There's ones
That makes
who
sense.
say it's Nibiru. Do you know what Nibiru is?
Is that a Nickelodeon Junior show?
Yeah.
There's Bluey and Nibiru.
Bluey, Nibiru. No, yeah.
Mom!
Nibiru is something I've thought about.
Dad! Nibiru! It was one of those jokes you knew was coming.
Yeah, you
had
felt
to
it
sit-
coming.
you had to
but
wait
you had
for
to
it,
wait
you know?
for it. Yeah. But Nibiru is this concept I've thought about doing an episode on.
Nibiru's brother Zaboomafoo. Zaboomafoo. Nibiru. You get where I'm going.
Basically, it's like an idea that there's like some other like hidden planet we haven't found that's like trying to hit Earth.
Okay.
Like we don't know what's out there, but
We
it's
don't know
coming.
where you're at, but you know where we are. And that's scary.
It's gonna be here within the next couple of years because we're in the fourth turning,
And they know that.
and they know it, but NASA hasn't seen it yet.
They've been tracking.
this giant planet that's close enough to hit us in a couple of years.
How do you think time will work on Mars?
Same way it works in here.
Now, I understand what you're saying, but here's what I'm saying. I'm saying, no, like, how long is a year on Mars compared to a year here? You know, like for a full rotation of the sun?
I know this, but I don't remember.
Speaking of this, we should do away with time zones.
Oh my gosh, is this the only reason you brought this up? 687 days on Mars.
For a year. That's what I'm
a
saying.
year,
That's like
yeah.
2 years.
That is like 2 years.
Now, so how do years work on Mars?
Yeah,
Tim?
if we
How does time
colonize
work?
Mars, do we have year zones too, not just time zones?
Will time zones exist? I don't think time zones should exist. I think we should go on universal time.
Yeah, we've been arguing about this all day.
Well, and people are like, well, then the sun would set at 9 a.m. So the sun sets at 9 a.m. Get over it. Like, well, we can't just do all this because God gave us time zones. It's all made up.
It's all made up.
We made up time zones, dude.
Yeah, we did.
We made up years.
Yeah, we did.
So how would that work if they're on? What I'm saying is, if they're on a different planet, here's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
If they're on a different planet, how are they like? This is 80 Earth years.
Yeah, no, they would probably just change.
They would probably just attack
probably
us.
just
They don't
say-
really care. They don't speak. They just grunt and do war.
They would probably just have Martian years. This is a Martian year.
Martian years.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is
I thought you were
one
like
Martian-
ears. And I was like, what, are they going to hear very far away? They're going to be like, oh, the conspiracy theorists are getting pretty loud.
It's one Mar year.
Sir, it sounds like Earth is nearing a crisis.
It sounds like the Nibiru's about to hit Earth.
It is time for us to attack.
I'm glad we live on Mars.
Nibiru.
Nibiru. Yeah, so some people think Nibiru is about to hit. Some people think it's just like an economic crisis or just going to be like another pandemic or something like
Sure.
that. Everybody's got different ideas of what is the crisis, but the leading one is like a world war. And coincidentally, right now, there's some geopolitical instability with some major powers in the world.
Yeah.
That
We
are
got to be careful,
stoking the
man,
flame.
because we did an episode all
So
about
sad.
Putin, and
Yeah.
then we couldn't put it out
Yeah.
because we record weeks in advance.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, we got to be careful
We got
what
to
we
be
talk
careful about what
right
we say
here
right now. Yeah. Yeah, because we don't know what's going to happen.
in 5 weeks.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, there's some geopolitical instability that is stoking the flames of these conspiracy theories.
Sure.
And so they're getting,
Pretty antsy.
yeah. And so, and what's interesting is they use this book as kind of like the proof to this concept.
Yeah, look, we're not the crazy ones.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because the end of this book closes with some predictions. And
Okay.
they predict at the end of this book a few things that are very interesting. They predicted that around 2020, they used the word 2020, around the year 2020, there will be a communicative virus that spreads across the whole world. They said that there will be an economic
You know what's
crisis in the same
creepy?
era. What?
Do you remember, like, when we lived, he didn't live in the apartment, I guess. When I lived in the apartment with Martz and Ryan and all them.
Yeah.
And that was 2014, 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
And Last Man on Earth.
Yeah.
Do you know about
I
that?
have heard about that. Yeah.
The opening scene
Yep.
says the year 2020. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I don't
that's-
remember that.
That's spooky. That was a fun show though.
It was all right. It was pretty good for the first season.
The first season was really fun.
Yeah.
And then
And then it got weird.
they had to stretch it a little bit.
Yeah. That's all right.
Anyways,
So yeah, there's
that's
a lot
spooky.
of weird, spooky stuff.
yeah,
And we're watching Servant.
Yeah.
And Servant came out in 2018.
Yeah.
When we're watching season 1.
Yeah.
And he loses his taste and smell.
Interesting.
And he's like, he's got some kind of virus or something.
Interesting.
And we're watching it being like,
Oh, weird. He got it. He's early.
yeah.
He was the first. He was subject 1.
But it was like in the show, it's like some, it's like not a witchcraft thing, but like a supernatural.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's weird.
It was coronavirus.
Barona. Anyway.
So it was a different thing. You can't say it's the same thing. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. If you like it, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Speaking of future episodes, we have a ton of past episodes. We have a back catalog of well over 100 episodes. So check those out. My current favorite is Nellie Bly. She was a journalist from the early 1900s who totally changed the industry, especially for women in the industry. Super cool story, but also kind of crazy, some of the things that she did. We had a lot of fun in that episode, so check that out. Don't forget to subscribe, but ultimately, just thanks for being here. Now, and then they said that there was going to be an economic crisis in that same time period. They also said that at the very beginning of the fourth turning, that there would be a terrorist attack that would result in the explosion of an airplane. And then they talked about a major war happening.
Has there been an explosion with airplanes?
I mean, the 9/11.
Yeah, but that was the beginning of the...
That's what the fourth turning people are saying they were talking about. Because this book was written in 1997.
That's true. I knew that. I understand how
time works.
Pre 9/11, post. I understand pre 9/11, post 9/11. I understand that. I just didn't know that they were like that's it.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay.
And so they take these predictions and say, well, here's all the predictions that they said were going to happen. We can pinpoint. Here's some things that have happened, but then there's some other things that haven't happened, like the war.
Sure.
And so they're like, yeah, we're still in this fourth turning period, and we've got a big war coming, and you better buckle your bootstraps, buy your bunker,
your bootstraps,
buckle your bootstraps, buy your bunker, and build your
bean basement.
You need a lot of cans of beans. I just need another B word. Bean is what happened.
Bean.
Build your bean castle.
Build your bean
cans.
Bunker.
Bean bunker. This bunker is 100% bean can.
Okay. It's the most structural structure.
It's the most structural structure. It's perfect because it can withstand nuclear blasts, but then once I'm ready to get out, I can just eat my way out. I love aluminum.
This is very weird.
So here's the thing.
Okay, you listened to it though.
I listened to the book, yeah, and I watched some interviews with the author because he's still around doing interviews.
Yeah. Interview number 1. I didn't do this. This wasn't me.
I didn't have anything
I didn't
to do
do
with this. Tell the CIA it wasn't me. My partners at the CIA showed up last night.
We're still trying to figure out what happened. I didn't do this.
I had nothing to do with this. No, what's interesting is that end of the book that is kind of the basis for a lot of the conspiracy theories.
Right.
That last chapter was a section that opened with them saying, here's how this could possibly pan out. And so they didn't even say that here's some predictions for the future. They said, here's a possible scenario. And they gave 4 possible scenarios. And those 4 possible scenarios were separate. The virus did not happen in the same scenario as the war. The economic downturn did not happen in the same scenario as the terrorist attack.
But it's also not like COVID came out of nowhere.
Yeah, we knew.
That's what all the experts were trying to say.
They've been saying
was like we've been saying
years.
that we're not prepared for a pandemic.
Yeah, since the swine flu
for decades.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's not super surprising that in 1997, it is a little odd that they were 2020.
Yeah,
but like. For them to say in the next 20 years.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is everything that they said was still broad. Like they did say there'd be a pandemic, but like you said, yeah, of course a pandemic could happen. Like we have record of those things happening all the time. Wars could happen. Economic downturns could happen. And
possible.
Terrorist attacks could happen. And so these were all really broad things that were just like tragic events that they were saying could happen during this fourth turning. And they weren't saying they were going to happen. They weren't like predicting them.
Right.
They were saying, here's some possibilities of how the fourth turning could pan out.
Right.
And they've ran with them like these were prophecies when that's not what they were saying.
No.
Their subtitle was misleading because they used that word prophecy. I feel like they should change that. But the whole concept of the book is actually a lot more interesting than what the conspiracy theorists say it is. It's not this mystical, like the world goes to world war every 80 years. It's not that.
Sure.
It's that it might. Basically the concept is this, is that they take seasons, like we all have, every year has a season. And in every season you have different behaviors in that season. You would not try to reap a harvest in the winter. You're not trying to plant seeds in the winter. And so your mindset and your behavior in those seasons is different because of what season you're in.
Yeah, I mean, Hot Girl Summer is different than Meet the Parents Winter. You know, those are different.
That's a different season. That's a different season. Yeah, you're right. And so what they said is that the generations follow the same pattern.
That makes sense.
That every 20 years
Sayers
or so,
has been talking about this too.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's read these books, because these are pretty academic books. These are not. Yeah.
That I've read. These are pretty academic books.
These are pretty
Smart
academic.
people read
You
these.
wouldn't understand.
I read this after I volunteered at church on Sunday.
You have to buy stocks to understand this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. I got a portfolio.
Bonds.
No, so
ETFs.
every 20 years or so, short end 10 years, long end 30 years, average 20. You know how averages work. But every is a different generational archetype.
Yep.
And those archetypes follow one of four structures. There's the prophet,
Okay.
which is a time where it's all, this generation is big on
Here's what it could
community
be.
life, consensus around ideals.
Sure.
Basically, there is large figureheads and institutions that guide people forward. There's the prophets of the generation that lead everyone, and everyone follows their lead. It's very high value of institutions.
Yeah.
The nomad has rebelled against the prophets. The nomad's the next generation.
Okay.
They've rebelled against the prophets, and it's almost like a spiritual awakening type of situation, but much more internal. So it's less about the whole, and it's more about the me, and it's more about like taking down the established order, taking down the establishment, and not listening to what they want from us, because they
And these
it
go
turns out
right
they weren't
after
great.
each other, or are these just two different?
They come right after each other.
Okay.
The next is the hero. And the hero is one where they have seen a lot of instability that has come from the nomads having kind of tore down all the establishments and all of the institutions. And so they come up in an era where things are rocky and difficult.
Sure.
And so they are oddly, strangely optimistic about the future, that change is coming and things are going to become better. And they often become the ones who kind of lead the change. That's why they're called the heroes.
Okay.
And then the artists are the ones who they come of age in a time where everything is radically changing, and they're not allowed to be a part of it because they're too young. And so then as they grow old, they feel this urge to contribute, but the only way they can contribute is through art. And so they kind of describe everything that they were around growing up, because now things are better.
Sure.
But they remember a time when they were worse, and they kind of describe and they write this real, they're poetic, they're writers, they're musicians, they're artsy people.
Okay.
So yeah, those are the four archetypes. And obviously everybody is different in those, but that's
Sure.
the archetype that characterizes the four
Generations.
the four generations. And they wrote the book Generations, kind of talking about these archetypes, and really fleshed out the concept of what these archetypes were.
Sure.
And they followed them back about 500 years and showed that as you look at culture as a whole, from the American line of culture. So through the birth of the United States,
Right.
through colonialism and into the early...
when Jesus signed the Declaration of Independence.
that they followed this pattern.
Okay.
And pretty closely. And while doing that, they noticed that it wasn't just the generations, that there was this sort of feedback loop of the nation itself was going through this process as well.
Okay.
And that's what they call the turnings. And so the fourth turning is what we're
This
in
is
now.
very academic so far.
Thanks.
I just want to give our listener a break.
Do you want to do it?
No, just
Do you want to talk about swamps again? So the
listeners are thanking me for that, dude. They were like, "Shut this
give me a
guy
second
up,
to
man."
slow down.
Freaking. Hold on, let me pull out my notes. I guess. Hold on. There's a nomad. There's a hero.
Hero.
Which one are we?
We're heroes.
You're so full of yourself.
We're 100% heroes.
What are you talking
We
about?
are heroes. We are heroes. We'll get to that. So they discovered.
We are here. You're a hero. I'm a hero. We're all heroes.
No, we're not all heroes. We're barely heroes. We are barely heroes.
Okay.
But we'll still.
Was Gen
we're
Z
still
the
heroes.
artists then?
Yeah, they're artists. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Good for them.
Makes sense. Have you seen
Stupid.
their hair?
Wow, you're so
That's
old.
some artsy hair.
You're so old, bro. I'll tell you what, I saw the most millennial thing I've ever seen today. This is real. Someone got the Lord of the Lane closed, and so we're sitting there piling up, and then someone, does the thing where they cut all the way up here, and then they try they cut around this person real quick.
Yeah.
Anyway, gets in front of this girl, and this girl's got one of those, those octopus things on her dashboard, those little fluffy.
Yeah.
She turns it inside out because it's got a frowning face on the inside.
Oh my god!
And I was like, "Is that the millennial middle finger?
And
what is that?
no one
Are you
sees
freaking kidding me?" Because it's like one side is happy, and that's how you're telling your mood.
Yeah.
I was like, "Is this like a millennial mood ring? What is going on right here?" And she just reached up and she went like this, and she went.
But do you think that guy could actually see that?
No, I guarantee he would. No.
I saw a tweet where the guy was
If
like,
someone
"My
did that to
dad-"
me, I would brake check them.
and then I'd walk in.
I'd get out. I'd steal that octopus, turn it upside down. Are you joking? You saw a guy who do what?
No, I saw a tweet where the guy was like, "My dad doesn't flip people off in traffic. He gives them a thumbs down." And he's like, people seem to like that even less.
They don't like that. Where you just go,
Boo.
a guy tried to pass me on a single lane road today. He was real mad. I was like, "Where you got to go in your Chevy? What was it? Malibu? Chevy Malibu? Where you gotta go?"
That's sad.
That's sad. Sorry if you're listening to Chevy Malibu. That's because we're sponsored by Toyota. The all-new Toyota Corolla.
The happiest of cars.
I love that we couldn't even get sponsored by one of their better cars.
Don't worry, it's not sad. That's their new slogan. Don't worry, it's not sad.
It's not sad.
The not sad sedan.
So dumb.
Okay.
Oh, good. All right, back to the boring crap.
Back to the boring stuff. So the fourth turnings. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. You ready?
Thank God we're finally here. Now keep going.
Okay, so they noticed that the nation goes through this as well. And so there's these 4 cycles every 20 or 30 years or so.
Sure.
Where you have the 4 phases are, let me scroll down so I get this right. The 4 phases of the cycle are the high. And so that's when everything is really good.
Okay.
That's when you're excited to be alive. That's when
things are going.
things are trucking along forward. Things are going good.
Yeah.
But it's double-sided. It's not just high because it's good. And that's not just prosperous. It's high because you have a high institutional reliance. Everybody's relying on the institution
Post-World War
being
II.
communal. Yeah.
Here we are.
You're in the high. The next phase is the awakening. That's when everybody starts to
60s.
become, more introspective. More, it's about me. It's not about everybody else. And then you have the unraveling. That's when everything starts to fall apart. It's a very chaotic time.
Okay.
But it's not explosive, and there's not a lot of change coming out of it. But it's chaotic. And what's strange though is it's still pretty good. Like it's It's weird because it's still pretty good, but there's a lot
You still got the safety of the institutions,
yeah.
but you can explore different things.
Yeah, and there's and maybe a good way to put it is there's bad things going on around the world, but you're kind of removed from it. And so like things
you don't know.
things are pretty bad and you know it's bad, but you're like, I don't have to like
It's not my
I don't have to
problem.
acknowledge that it's bad. You know? Like that's the unraveling.
Things are bad.
Yeah. And then the crisis is when the unravel kind of hits that fever pitch,
Sure.
and then you have to get involved. You're stuck in it, and it's here, and things get really, really crazy, and then it repeats, and you go back into a high. And what they say is that because of the way the interplay of where the generations are at specific points in time when events happen,
Right.
and because of the way that those generations react when they have the power and the control to events, then it creates this cultural attitude, and it dictates how history unfolds and how the nation gets involved with world events.
Sure.
For example, World War I happened during an unraveling. World War II happened during a crisis. Period. And so the unraveling period. No. Okay, yeah. Period. So because World War I was in an unraveling period.
Yeah, World War was not very popular with America.
Yeah. The World War I started with the sinking of that ship. I don't remember what it's called. The Titanic.
Okay.
It was Disney Cruise. It took
They took out Carnival Dream. Speaking of, I'll be on Carnival Dream Memorial Day weekend. If you want to buy tickets to that cruise,
It's just his vacation.
I'm not performing.
He
Just gonna be.
He's gonna
and
be there.
Ray's not going. You know,
If you want to see me tanning
just
on the
me.
deck.
That's right. I needed some me time. And Carnival's the cheapest one. So that's why I did it. If you want to see me perform with the Spirit Airlines of the Sea, then you can come to Carnival Dream.
You think you could book a show on Spirit? It'd be
I
the
bet
in-flight
I'll
entertainment.
fly Spirit to the
Carnival.
thing, to be honest with you.
Oh my gosh. No.
I really am on Carnival Dream Memorial Day weekend, though.
You are.
If you want to come to that. Not you. But
Yeah, I know.
man, what if that's what I got you for your birthday? Carnival cruise.
You are
One ticket.
performing on.
One ticket. This is for you or Bree.
Yeah, one of you can go.
And then the other one would have to pay for it. So you guys can have that fight later. But just wanted you to know. I'm going to get you a good gift. You got me a really good gift this year.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah. Got me a bad gift last year.
That's why I tried so hard this year.
Last year, it looked like he unscrewed a lamp from his own house. Like a little wall lamp. And was like, you can have this. Doesn't match anything in my house. I was like, okay, thanks. I put it up though. Also, I'm not allowed to modify things in my apartment. I can't put that up anywhere.
It's a corded lamp. It's a corded lamp. You like convey strip to the wall. Like that's why
Okay.
I was like, this is a nice little
Yeah,
reading
it's a
nook
good little
lamp.
gift. It's a great gift. It's a great gift. I really appreciated it.
He does not appreciate it.
Yeah. I bought you a car. Last year.
A Toyota Corolla.
Toyota Corolla. And I didn't even get one of the sad ones, bro. You went to IKEA and you're like, give me the saddest lamp you have.
I need a lamp you would cry under.
This is your cry light. Have fun. Jeez, bro. What did I get you for your birthday last year?
You got me a flight that I still haven't taken.
And you still haven't taken it, bro.
I know. I need to take
Stupid. I got him a training flight that he can go learn how to fly.
Learn how to
They
fly.
do that on Spirit. Did you know that? They just
Anybody
let
can
you sit up
fly.
there and they're
Anybody
like,
can fly.
They're like, hey, you want to give it a shot?
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing.
You can book it on Expedia. It's like first class.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. No, yeah.
First class.
In World War I,
Yeah.
they sunk the Fantasia of the Sea, and it took the U.S. 2 years to finally decide, hey, we're going to be a part of this war now.
Sure.
World War II was in a crisis period. They bombed Pearl Harbor, and the next day we were in the war.
Yeah.
And so it's the way the people in power react to things
Sure.
that make the things that happen in that time in history
If you're in a
happen.
crisis, it's a very reactive time. You know?
And that's the idea, is that the people who are in power in that
it's not
era
very calculated.
are crisis-minded people.
So, hey, it's me again. Thanks for being here for this episode. If you like what we're doing, it does cost us money to do this. And so just think about that. That's it. I'm kidding. No, we have Patreon supporters, and it really helps us to make this show possible. Honestly, we're so grateful for everyone who listens to the show. But there's people who want to make more of it happen, and so they financially support the show, and you get a lot back for it. You get our private Discord where we chat every day. We're hanging out and just getting to bond and hang out. We also do live Zoom hangouts for our Patreon supporters. You get exclusive merch. It's a good time. There's a lot in it for you, and it's a lot in it for us because we get to know you better. You're not just a number in a stat board or whatever, but you're our friends, and we appreciate you a lot. So consider doing that. If not, then you can listen to this dumb little ad, because that's how we're gonna get money from you. We're gonna leech from you either way. We're gonna get paid. We're in this for the cold hard cash, baby. Anyway, here's an ad.
How do they get it though? I realized I forgot to put a CTA in mine.
Oh,
While you were doing
gummit.
that. Yeah.
They can text TILLN to 66866.
Thanks, Jared.
The question I've got then is like, so I mean, like you're saying the generation as a whole is certain, whatever, like we're the heroes, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that we're going to have to be the heroes for the next phase of this?
Yeah. That's the concept. So the concept is...
well, that kind of sucks.
What they realize is that the generations all had these personality types.
Sure.
And then the nation went through the phases as well. And the nation kind of is like a rolling target. But yeah, it lines up to where your hero is always coming to age. So in their 20s to 40s during the crisis. And so they're the ones who have to rise up and solve the crisis. And so that's why...
But I don't want to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not my problem.
It will be. That's their point, is it becomes a situation where you're the one who has to figure it out.
And I hate that. I resent that.
I want it to be their problem.
It is their problem. Like the bank failure, bro?
That's their problem.
Dude, I was so annoyed. Do you know about the SVB bank failure thing? Not do you know about the bank failure thing. Do you know that in 2009, they put a bunch of regulations on banks that they were like, hey, you can't do sketchy stuff anymore. And in 2018, the government was like, hey, never mind about all that.
Just kidding. Feel free to be sketchy.
And then it took them less than 5 years to be like, we sketched too hard.
harder.
I'm so annoyed at that crap, man. I don't want to be the hero generation.
Yeah, well, you gotta
I want to be the little baby generation that gets taken care of.
Yeah,
I want to be the artist. I want to do our stupid podcast.
Well, we are on the line. So, I mean, if you play your cards right, you could be artsy.
I don't want to do that crap.
You could be artsy if you want. Change your haircut. I'm just an artist.
Dude, I'm so full of riz. Whatever that means. I don't know what the kids say. I can gritty.
I have no idea what you're saying right now.
Oh, man, you've been out of youth ministry for a minute.
I have. So it's become this feedback loop of the people behave in a certain way when they're in that part of the generation. But the world around them is what has led them to do that. So the world they came up in created their personality, like nurtured their personality. And because they came up in that world, when they find themselves in their position of power, they're going to react a different way. And it creates a cycle. And it's just kind of rolling on itself right now.
Okay.
Because that's...
Yeah, the same way that, like, you know, our grandparents don't do this because they didn't live through the Depression anymore, but their parents, so like my mom's grandparents, saved aluminum foil and all that stuff because they, you know, they lived through the Depression. So they saved everything.
Yeah, because they came up in a period when that was what they learned.
Even when it wasn't necessary anymore, that was still that's what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. And so So they take this back to the 1500s and illustrate this. Every 20 years or so, you see the turn, and the whole book is pretty much them going through each of these 20 years to being like, here's everything that was happening in the world. Here's how it went down. Here's how the American culture reacted to it. And it lines up throughout the whole story. And so when they wrote the book, they were at the tail end of an unraveling. And they said that we believe that this unraveling will end sometime around 2006 and be launched. And what's true of the crisis almost throughout every point in history that they've outlined. I think they went through 5 of these cycles.
We're hitting a lot of crisis, though. This is more than just freaking...
Well, that's the thing, is the crisis is always started kind of surprisingly. It's like an overnight thing. All of a sudden, you're in a crisis moment, and that lasts about 20 years. And there's multiple crises.
Crisis last 20 years? Yeah, 9/11, the housing crisis.
Well, 9/11 was in the unraveling. 9/11 was actually in the unraveling. 2008 was the housing crisis. That was the start of our crisis period.
Okay.
And so, by their numbers...
I did have a crisis in 2010, too. That makes sense.
I don't think personal crises count. That's just you.
Yeah.
That's not a part of the...
I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, that's just
there was like one level of Temple Run I couldn't get past. You know what I'm talking about? You remember Temple Run?
Yeah, I broke my phone. It wasn't even a phone; it was an iPod Touch.
I should download Temple Run tonight.
Actually,
Hashtag ad.
It's interesting that you brought that up because I saw somebody playing Temple Run the other day, and I literally out loud said, "Are you playing Temple Run
in the swamp? Are you playing Temple Run out here?" And he's just like, "Yeah,
eating cheesecake, playing Temple Run."
That's like the guy in first class. You see it all the time. You don't, because you don't sit in first class.
Oh my god!
But like I see it all the time. People still play Angry Birds.
Yeah, that's bonkers to me.
Old white guys got that game. Like that's the first thing they download.
Yeah.
But when they get a new iPhone, they don't even download their wife's contact information before they download Angry Birds 3.
Yeah, they walk
and
in.
They go restore purchase.
They walk into the AT&T store and they say, "Hey, will I lose my Angry Birds progress if I get the new iPhone?"
Yeah, there's a guy who straight up has his old phone still,
just
because
for Angry
he's
Birds?
got some kind of progress on his phone.
He doesn't want to lose that.
He doesn't want to lose, but he's not an iPhone. It was a different phone, and he didn't want to lose, so he got the iPhone, but he keeps his old phone.
That's so weird. Yeah, well,
So
find something you love and hold on to it, I guess.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we chose marriage and family, and this guy chose Snake on his 2002 Nokia. Bro, the buttons are gray. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just worn out, and he's just sitting there freaking.
He's sitting out of the plane. This dude's watching a movie. This dude's eating Five Guys, and then this dude pulls out his Nokia.
Gosh dang it. Gee golly. I think
if you tried to bring a Nokia on the plane,
I was going to say, they stop you at security. They go, that seems pretty 2001.
Bomb.
Yeah. No pre-2007 phones are here.
Your phone has to have a screen that's full phone, or else we don't buy it.
Full phone. Can't bring a brick. It doesn't meet the weight requirements.
It's too heavy for the plane.
Can't take that.
You're gonna weigh the whole plane down, boy.
Yeah.
The plane's not even gonna
Can
take
you
off
move to the
with
back, please, for weight and balance with your brick phone?
Hey, sir, your phone's too heavy to sit in the front.
Imagine him walking through the airport, though. That huge phone in his pocket. Just freaking. Pants aren't designed for that anymore, man.
Yeah, they had parachute pants back then. There's a lot more. They were much more forgiving.
Stupid, dude. I don't know how we got here.
But they last 20 or 30 years.
Oh, okay.
10 to 30 years.
Where we are.
So on the low end, 2018 was the end, which we all know that wasn't
the end.
So on the mid end, 2028 will be the end of the crisis. And crisis periods are full of crises. And so we obviously, we don't even have to list them. We know that in the last 10-ish years, there's been a lot.
Let's list them.
The point is there's probably going to be more. And there's probably going to be things that we, as the heroes, are going to have to be heroic for.
Sure.
What's interesting, according to their timeline, we've obviously gone through a series
lot
of
of
crises.
crises.
There's a good chance that there's going to be more. But
Sure.
with what they say, we could be done because they say that 10 years, it's somewhere between 10 and 30 on average 20 years is what these turnings are.
Sure.
So we could be done. What's important is that during the time of crises, the people in power generally as well. Generally make decisions that exasperate the problems and make things a little bit bigger of an issue than they would have been if these things happened during unravelings or other periods. Because that's an important thing to note, is that wars and crises happen in every turning.
Well, but that's the thing, is that wars and crises, they can't be dealt with long-term solutions. They have to be dealt with immediate solutions, which is where conspiracy theorists get all messed up and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, the government didn't have all the info we've got now about COVID.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
like they couldn't be like, hey, we're going to do a 2-year rollout of all this stuff.
Yeah.
They had to be like, everyone shuts down
tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so issues happen throughout everything. It's the way that issues are handled and the way things happen and the way the society reacts to those issues during the crisis that makes it a crisis period. What the really interesting part about this is, though, is that in the crisis period,
Sure.
just like a lot of us do in our regular lives, is we wait until the crisis to finally deal with all the problems that have been coming up during the unraveling, during the awakening.
Right.
That's when we say, okay, all this stuff needs to be dealt with. And then in the high period, you come into an area where the heroes of, notice I pointed out myself for heroes, where the heroes who helped usher everyone out of the crisis create the new institutions. And they build those institutions. It becomes a high institutional era, and it becomes an area of relative prosperity because everyone's kind of been like, oh yeah, this whole like trying to do everything by myself hasn't really worked.
Yeah.
And then the cycle repeats itself. What's interesting is if you look at the end of World War II, all of the high institutions that were established are really the high institutions that are running everything today. They're still the ones that are in play, but they haven't changed at all. The world's changed a lot, but they're still operating things as they did in that era. CIA, FBI, United Nations, NATO, all of these institutions that created the prosperity that was possible after World War II are still here. Chances are in the crisis period, a lot of those will get obliterated and new things will be put in their place and everybody will bow down to the new world order, new institutions.
Sure. Every knee will bow.
And then things will be pretty good. The authors are careful to note that it's not, the high is not a high for everybody. There are people who, the high is a high for some people because they subjugated other people to be able to be in a high. And so it's not everything's great all the time when things are happening, but it is, for the most part, as far as the greater culture, the majority of the people are in this cycle, and it repeats itself. It's kind of the concept, you probably heard it of the. This is a classic Wild at Heart conference quote, but it's honestly kind of their point of hard times make strong men make good times make weak men make bad times make strong men make good times, and restart the cycle.
You've been to one too many men's conferences.
Yeah. And that's essentially the concept here, is that the things that happen in the world are pretty cyclical.
I'm just a weak little man.
Just a weak little boy. But anyways, we can leave it with this. The guy did an interview with Tony Robbins.
We can land it here. So the guy was doing an interview with Oprah, and you're like, come on, dude.
And Tony Robbins came out and he was like, I got this guy who did the Ford
That's not how he sounds at all.
Can you do him?
Hold on.
He sounds like he smoked his whole life, but didn't smoke.
Yeah, it's definitely a low.
It's a little raspy.
Like a little low.
Kind of low.
Hold on.
Kind of low and raspy.
It's definitely
but it's got the rasp.
I don't know what accent he has. Like
it's almost Armenian kind of.
No, that's a little close. Anyway, what did Tony Robbins say?
So he talked about everything.
I downloaded
with these
his
seasons.
book on Audible. This is real. His money book or whatever.
Yeah,
so I was
yeah,
like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
I'll read that one. Sure.
I've
Do you know how
listened-
long
I've
his
listened
Audible
to
one
it.
is? Do you know how long it was?
Like 20 hours.
21 hours, bro.
yeah,
I was like,
that's a
I
long one.
don't need to make money that bad. I was like, if I spent all 21 of those hours learning a new skill, you know what I'm saying? If I spent all those 21 hours, instead of listening to Tony Robbins' stupid book, if I spent all 21 hours breaking into cars at the movie theater parking lot by my house and stealing their stuff and reselling it on Amazon, you know how much money I have?
If I've spent all 21 of those hours buying 21 rental properties, do you know
Bro, okay, did you see the podcast clip? Golly, man. It's one of the Barstool people. It's a girl. And she's saying, she says, if a guy has time in his 20s to take me out on dates, then he's a loser.
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah, a guy should not have time for you in his 20s.
Yeah.
That's her point. That's crazy.
yeah. I sent it to Ray. And I was like,
This is why I never see
this is why I never hang out with you. I'm busy listening to Tony Robbins' book.
I'm busy succeeding over here.
It's just me, just
Just sitting
like I'm at a record store. What is this?
Just sitting cross-legged at Starbucks with a straw to your cold brew.
That's on the floor for some reason. That was a long straw, dude. I listened to Tony Robbins' book in one ear, and then in the other book, I listened to Grant Cardone.
Greg Cardone.
Oh gosh, dude, this is so bad.
No, so Tony
So
Robbins. Said-
yeah,
Tony
Tony
Robbins.
Robbins.
Tony Robbins was talking to him about all these generations, and one of the main points that the authors of this book make is that the reason why things get so bad so often
Yeah,
is because we do things in these turnings that are not first turning or third turning actions. And Tony drew the example of saying that one of the biggest moments for the human race was when we figured out seasons, was because we figured out that we should not try to reap our harvest in the winter. We should
Sure.
not try to plant seeds in the middle of the summer, because people were doing that for many years and they couldn't figure out why it wasn't working.
right.
When they figured out seasons, it opened up a whole new world for us. And so their point is that we need to recognize these patterns and be able to see what part of the pattern we're in and play to that pattern and not just act like everything's the high.
Sure.
And act like everything's great, because in reality it's not. We need to plan for whatever phase we're in. Maybe we're planting for a harvest in the high that's going to be 40 years from now.
Well, I guess it's good that like the crisis is almost over.
It is kind of like
the rest of our life, gonna be all right.
yeah. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
If we can survive.
If you're a little baby listening to this, sorry, dude.
your childhood's going to be pretty rough.
Yeah.
But
You're
then
gonna be a
make
weak little man.
You're going to make some art. You're going to make some good art.
Do some good little
You're going to do
drawings.
some art, and then your kids are going to be crazy.
Or rise up.
Yeah, the world's going to unravel around your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to die whenever everything else was as bad as it was when you were born. It was bad when it started. It's going to be bad when it ends. I'm sorry about that.
That's what I'm saying. If you're born in like 1940 and
Yeah.
you died last year,
That's rough. That's a rough
that's
go.
a rough life.
Yeah, but honestly, though, like you didn't have to. Honestly, that might be the best scenario because you
You didn't have to do any of
you
this
didn't have to do it when it was bad, and then you're old enough to where you don't have to deal with it when it was bad.
That's what my grandma is right now. She was born at 35
Yeah,
and she's still around. She's still
Yeah.
kicking.
Yeah.
But it's not her problem anymore.
yeah. So
You know?
she got to live the prime of her life when the world was pretty,
Yeah, her
pretty
house
decent.
was $21,000.
That's bonkers.
Good for her.
But yeah, so
I bought it for $21,000 last year. She doesn't know. She doesn't know how housing
look,
market
you
works
paid
anymore.
$21,000 for this.
I said, let's call it
Second,
even.
you drive it off the loft.
Yeah, the
lot.
loft.
The
Second,
lot.
you drive it off the loft.
Second, you drive it off the lot. I'll give you $16,000 for this house.
Yeah.
That's fair. That seems fair.
I did
to
go
me.
try to buy a car this week, and I was like, let's just see what I can swing for. They listed it for $26,900, and I said, would you take 21 for it? And she went, no.
Would you take 4?
No, and I said, okay.
All right,
I figured
fine.
I'd ask.
I'm walking.
She goes, 26,900. And I said, well, you didn't say a different number. I said, at least I said a different number. I said, what about 23,500?
She said 26,900,
went-
and then I said, "Ooh, the
She
banker's
went-
calling.
She went,
Would you like to open up another case?"
deal or no deal?
Is that supposed to be your fault?
You don't have to do that.
Oh my god! Fix your shirt. Pull your shirt down.
Oh, that comment was about you, Tubbers. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Tim.
Oh my gosh. Ugh. Anyways,
good
so
time.
long story short,
I'm in my prime right now. I'm in my high time right now, if you will.
long story short,
Yeah.
the conspiracy theorists will tell you that these people predicted that we're about to go into World War III.
Yes.
Odds are we are, but they didn't predict it. And it's not guaranteed. We might not. We might be done. We might be going into a period where we're going to build up our institutions. One thing I'll say that's really interesting is when I was in Bible school, I did not get credentialed by the AG because I did not trust the institution. And I did not want to tie myself that closely to the institution because I came up in an unraveling when institutions weren't trusted.
Okay.
I have recently, within the past year or so,
started to believe in institutions.
and I think you and I have had these conversations where I've been
Yes.
like, you know what? I think institutions are important. And I think we do
Yeah.
need to bring some order into the world and people need to put some more trust in institutions. And that's just kind of happened.
Yeah, Tim came into the office one day and said, we should rule over our neighbors. And I was like, what? and now he's trying to frame it like, I really believe in institutions. But this man walked in, slammed the door open, was wearing a fur coat down to the floor, and said,
Like an
we
orange
must.
jumpsuit.
He said, let's take control of our dominion. And I was like, what are you talking about, bro?
What's that? Pax Romana.
He comes in wearing his fur coat and he just goes,
I'm the hero. Stop that right now. It took me so long to figure out what you were doing.
there's a
right
YouTube comment. We can talk about it. There's a YouTube comment that said, hey, you don't have to keep pulling your shirt down. It's
He
okay
literally
to
said
have.
you could delete this after you read it.
Well,
we didn't delete it.
He goes, you can delete this after you read it. You don't have to keep pulling your shirt down. It's okay to have a little bit of belly. And listen, the YouTube comments are not kind to me.
Yeah.
And they're usually about me. They're like, oh yeah, the big guy.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, well, that sucks. So I watched the clip and I didn't touch my shirt once. That's about Tim.
Yeah.
You know, so
I
Tim,
was
you don't
pulling my
got to be
shirt down.
ashamed of having a little belly.
I'm not ashamed of my little belly.
So he comes in one day, fur coat down to the ground, pulling on his shirt. And he goes, we need to rule over Kansas
neighbors.
City.
Yeah.
They will bow to us.
How do you think we take over power? We're the crisis.
We are the crisis, dude.
That'd be a cool
We are
shirt.
the crisis. That's a
We are the
cool.
crisis. That's a cool slogan.
That's a good album.
Do you want to start a cult? Well, I was thinking of cults. Like that was the cult slogan.
So
We are the crisis.
you believe in institutions in a way that's like what you're like. We should make banks still around, or what do you mean? You
No,
believe
it's
in
not banks.
institutions?
But I think it's
It's important to have oversight. It's important to have a group of people.
Here's a great example. There's
Sure.
an episode. I don't remember what episode. I know we shot it. I vividly remember in your apartment that we did where we were talking. I think about AI or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe it was maybe it was Neuralink.
Sure.
Because I was saying at the time, I strongly believed that crowdsourced wisdom was better than like refined academic, like
Yeah, it's
academia
not.
coming in, and
It's not.
I have changed my opinion on that.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think that a lot of things that have happened recently.
Was it Bitcoin? Do you think it was about Bitcoin?
It could have been, but yeah. Now I don't see things that way. I think that the Wikipedia model of doing things is not the best way. You need peer review. You need a control system to say, yeah, that's accurate. That's not accurate. That's an okay thing to say. That's not an okay thing to say.
Sure.
Here's the rules. and we're going to enforce them and make sure you follow them, because that's how you have an orderly society that doesn't crumble.
Well, and people will go, well, we got to think outside the box. You're like, yeah, but not that far outside the box.
Yeah.
Like, you don't got to think into a different realm and different circle.
And I think it's
like,
I think there's room for that.
Yeah.
But I don't think you publish that. I think you think that way.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think
you
you
gotta
publish.
prove it first.
Yeah, you gotta
like test it
and justify it, and you gotta have people who can agree with you and be like, yeah, you're right. You don't get to just go tweet and
you don't think the internet affects the generation stuff at all?
I'm sure it does. But I think that...
Do you think... My theory is that we would almost accelerate it. That instead of 80 years, we would be doing this every 30 years.
You know, it's possible. But I think more than anything, it's just kind of moved that... I mean, to use a word that was used when Twitter was bought a lot, it's moved that kind of marketplace, like city center thing to the internet.
Sure.
And so like it's still engaging. It's still doing the same thing that was happening before. I saw this thing on TikTok today. A guy was talking about a third place. Have you seen that? Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
Like you have to have a third place.
So Starbucks is, that's what their slogan is to nurse someone be a third place.
If you haven't heard of it, basically the concept is that your first place is your home. Your second place is your place of work. Your third place is your place of community. And for a lot of people, that's churches, maybe a cafe or a coffee shop that they go to a lot, or whatever, a bar, a club. Like it's places
how the internet became the third place.
Yeah.
And so whenever you a lot of kids end up isolating in their rooms as an attempt to find a third place. I saw a video like that in the context of, we made it illegal for kids to hang out anywhere.
Yeah.
So kids don't have a third place outside of the internet.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's the problem with the internet is a lot of people thought the internet was going to be our new third place, and so all the third places closed down. Yep. Malls, so many churches, so many restaurants and bars and things like that.
Yeah.
But the internet has not been able to replicate what third place has done for people.
Yep.
But it maybe
third place.
Maybe it has done all the worst sides of the third place though. Like it's I don't know.
Anyway.
But yeah, anyways, long story short, I felt my opinion change on that. And just organically through watching the world do what the world has done through this fourth turning, I've been like, you know what? Maybe institutions aren't that bad of a thing.
Yeah.
I was very against them when I was younger. And now I would say I'm leaning pro institution.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So we as the heroes have to face a crisis head on.
Yeah.
Let's say that the banks really screw us over.
Yeah.
What do you suggest that we do to fight back?
I think that the obvious thing that I think any hero would realize in that situation is everybody get on a bus.
Okay.
All the heroes. If you're not a hero, don't get on the bus. This bus is for heroes only. The hero bus, destination, Georgia. We're going to have a fiddle off.
I was like, where are you going with that?
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. If you liked it, you can subscribe or watch some more episodes or some clips. But then I need to make this like 20 seconds. My producer said it has to be longer, so I'm just going to keep talking for a little bit. And is this long enough, Connor? Okay, cool. Thanks for being here.